Hello everyone, this is April with CraftKnifeChronicles, and this is an introduction to the video series to construct the upcycled watering can and the mini album that can fit inside of it. To get started, you'll want to check out the link that is listed below to get this document called the Materials and Cutting Guide for the project. It's a free download and it is available up on Dropbox.com. This document consists of a materials and tools list on the front page, and then several pages of cutting guides, and also a list of what I consider common paper crafting tools. I'm not going to go through everything on this list. I just want to highlight a few things that are on this list. The project is mainly made with medium weight chipboard, and that is chipboard that is 1/16 of an inch thick. All of the measurements depend on the chipboard being a 1/16 of an inch thick. For the watering can itself, you need the paper crafting set, the 12 by 12 set of the fairy dust paper, or of course you could use any other 12 by 12 paper that you want. I also did use a piece from or several pieces from the chipboard set, this set that came with the paper crafting collection. The only other thing for the watering can itself is I used two of these shabby chic door pulls. Two come in a package to use as the window boxes. You could use anything that's similar for the window boxes, or you could omit the window boxes altogether. For the landscaping, I used leftovers from the 12 by 12 pattern paper, and also I used paper from the 12 by 12 patterns and solids. Most of the flowers are built around 1/8 inch or 2 millimeter skewers. I don't have those are very common to find, or toothpicks. I also used small river rock. This is about the size of piece that I used, and I did color these with some alcohol ink. You'll see listed underneath the tools. To support the skewers, I'm using 1/4 inch alphabet beads. These are beads that have a hole in the middle that's about 1/8 of an inch, and they're square. They're 1/4 inch square. Ignore that some of these are black. I use these for various projects. But you'll need, about 24 of those, depending on how many flowers you decide to have with the 1/8 inch skewers as the stems. I made my own mushrooms for the project, and there's 3 sizes, and it spells out in here the type of wood pieces that I used for each one. For the large, I used these wood checkers, and then a split ball, and a 3/4 inch spool. For the medium, I used a 3/4 inch furniture button and a 1/2 inch spool. And then the small ones are just a single piece, and they are these tiny drawer pulls. For the mini album, which is actually a little tunnel book, I used leftover scraps of both the pattern paper, 12 by 12 pattern paper, and the 12 by 12 patterns and solids. And then I also had a pack of these are the ephemera cards, and I cut out all the little images from those ephemera cards. And then I used a piece of this chipboard for the closure on the front. For the tools, the first thing I have listed here is rulers that measure to a 1/16 of an inch. There are often times in this project where you will need to be able to measure accurately to 1/16 of an inch. And so I use these 2 rulers. You will see me cutting with them as well, but I'm very careful because they do not have a metal edge. and with a sharp craft knife blade, it is easy to cut into the plastic. So if you decide to use these to cut against as well, just be very aware of that concern. Most of these other tools are self-explanatory. I've got some dies listed down here and other supplies. For the watering can, I used several dies for the windows. I used this Cottage Cuts Petites window die for the windows on the watering can, the large windows. And I also used this Movers and Shaper die, this one down here, to cut the window panes. Now, if you don't have either of these dies or both of these dies, I do explain how to get something comparable without having access to dies. So that's what I used for the watering can itself. The additional tools for the landscaping, I used a grass die to make the grass around the base of the watering can. Many companies make grass dies, so you can use whatever you want for that. And then for the florals, I used several Tim Holtz dies. I used this one that is called Small Tattered Florals. It's the same, and I think maybe I might have used this one as well. These flowers are very similar to this older tattered flower garland die. So either one, these are pretty much interchangeable in my opinion. This is older, and I don't think it's probably not available anymore. And then I also made flowers with this other Tim Holtz die, which is the Tiny Tattered Florals, sorry, right? Yeah, Tiny Tattered Florals. I did use various colors of paint to paint the mushrooms in bright colors. And then I already mentioned that I used alcohol inks to color the river rock. I just picked colors of both of those that coordinated with the paper line. And the last thing listed under here is a sturdy box lid, approximately 9 by 11 by 4. It can be anything, like this, what you use the box lid for, or something that's similar to a box lid, is to put the project up on top of here when you're working on the landscaping and determining how tall to make the flowers, and by putting the base up on top of here, you have room to move the flowers up and down to determine the heights. So it's just very handy to have something like this. And for the mini album, I used the same grass die that I did for the landscaping. I also had this Fisker's punch that makes a smaller thing of grass, so I used that as well. And then I used a couple of the dies from this Tim Holtz Garden Greenery Thinlits die set. Now on page 4 of this guide, the last page, it lists all the tools and things that I think you would commonly have if you work on projects like this, and so they are not listed on this first page. I just decided to include this list so in case you're wondering what all went into making this, you would have this list handy. The other 2 pages in the guide specify all of the pieces of medium weight chipboard, lightweight chipboard that are needed for all the parts of the project, and then also a cardstock cutting guide so that you can refer to that instead of having to make notes on the little pieces of cardstock that we use as the project goes along. Now, not every piece is listed in here, but most of the main pieces are. And so you'll want to have this and check off as you cut your pieces. Label everything carefully, and if you cut all of your pieces at once, use some kind of sorting system so you'll be able to identify the pieces that you have. So I think that's about all I wanted to say before we get started. So let's get going.